Well, our special guest on NDTV this evening is India's former Home Minister, former Finance Minister, Mr. P Chidambaram, who is out with his latest book, Undaunted, Saving the Idea of India, which is a collection of his columns and essays that have been published by a leading newspaper. Coming just on the eve of the 2019 elections, there are a lot of themes in this book, Mr. Chidambaram, that are very relevant to what's happening around us. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure.
The title itself, tell us, what is the threat to the idea of India that made you, come up with this title?
Institutions are under threat. Sections of people are under threat. Constitutional values are under threat. And a culture of impunity has taken over. In fact, in one column I called it, Republic of India is now becoming a Republic of impunity. And I think the idea of India on which India was founded, the Indian Republic was founded, is in grave danger. Anyone who speaks against the present ruling establishment is harassed, intimidated, charged, jailed, and whatnot. I think more and more people are realizing the clear and present danger of the present government, but I think the message has to be carried much further.
When you talked about how people are, being sort of thrown into jail for speaking out, there are laws that unfortunately allow the state to do that, whether it's the Sedition law or the National Security Act, and we've seen these laws being used with a greater frequency in recent weeks. Just today, we're hearing news that 14 students at the Aligarh Muslim University have been charged with sedition because they got into some altercation with another TV channel. These are laws, do you think, that should still remain in India's statute books?
Sedition must go. Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code must go lock, stock and barrel. Jawaharlal Nehru pointed this out in one of his early speeches, but didn't carry it through. The Supreme Court tried to fence it by imposing severe conditions under which the section can be invoked. But that is more honored in the breach than in the observance. Sedition charges are being leveled against students, poets, writers, academics, NGOs. Certainly, the sedition law was not intended for that.
But why didn't you get rid of it when you were in power?
Because when I was Home Minister, this issue had not come to a boil. Maybe some one or two stray cases. And my concerns were much wider and much different. It was after the Mumbai attack, and we had to completely reinvent the security machinery in order to prevent a similar attack in the future. Our energies were focused on that. But I have no doubt in my mind that if there is another government and I have anything to say or influence that government, I will strongly plead for Section 124A to be repealed, lock, stock and barrel.
Do you believe that there's still a need, though, for the National Security Act, the NSA? That's also often invoked and misused.
The second word is more correct. Invocation by itself is not wrong.
It's the misuse.
Invocation for misuse that is wrong. I think we put in enough safeguards, but it appears those safeguards are not good enough. We'll have to put in more safeguards, and if we can't put in more safeguards, I think that act also has to be repealed and replaced by a better act.
It was just used by the Madhya Pradesh government in the cow slaughter case, and you've spoken out, criticized that.
I did.
Yeah.
That has been explained now as district level officers acting perhaps out of old habits or to please someone else who did it. Now the government has acted. They have now centralized the power in the Home Secretary, and last I heard was that the Home Secretary is reviewing those two cases.
Now, coming back to your columns, which make up your book, let's look at the various themes you've touched on, and the economy is a very important part of it. You say that top of the list is the economy, that the government is manufacturing statistics, it's asking people to eat statistics. Now, there have been questions about India's GDP numbers, the jobs numbers. Do you think we're in danger of being disbelieved, around the world,
being disbelieved.
The way China was once upon a time?
They are being disbelieved. I didn't say that. Ruchir Sharma has said it. They are being disbelieved. And if you now force the only two members of the National Statistics Commission to resign, and you saw Mr. Mohanan's article in one of the papers the last couple of days.
He also spoke to us on
Yes.
record.
Now, he has said that employment data has been suppressed and nobody believes the CSO data. How can anyone believe a data which says the year of demonetization witnessed the highest growth ever? Can anything be more laughable? 2016-17, according to this government, recorded the highest GDP growth rate, which is why I said tongue in cheek, we should now do another round of demonetization. This time demonetize the 100 rupee notes, and GDP growth will shoot up to 10%.
So, when the government cites the Mudra loans in its defense and says that the fact that, we are giving out these loans, it shows that, we are creating jobs, people are setting up their own businesses. They cite that in their defense. And they say that, the traditional way of looking at jobs only through the prism of government jobs is not fair. Does that hold up in any way?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
The average Mudra loan is 47,000 rupees. Average. Now I'll give you 47,000 rupees. Can you create a job? 47,000 rupees can buy you a ceiling fan or a water cooler or a table or
it's not enough to sustain a business.
How can 47,000 rupees create a job? And today, if you create a job, I suppose you'll have to pay him at least 6,000 rupees a month. If you pay the new employee 6,000 rupees a month, your 47,000 rupees will vanish in 8 months. It's so laughable. In fact, it's a matter of shame that they peddle these statistics in the belief that somebody will believe it. How can 48,000 rupees or 47,000 rupees create a job in this country?
So you believe the GDP numbers are a lie, the jobs numbers are a lie. Are these being made up?
The job numbers have been suppressed.
Yeah.
The NSSOs got the job numbers, but they have suppressed it. The CSO numbers were tampered with by the Niti Aayog. I don't believe either of those numbers, and I think a number of economists I've spoken to don't believe it either.
Your essays also touch upon the other big political story that's raging today as well, which is the Rafale deal.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the CAG report that's been tabled today that says that the Modi government's deal was actually 2.8% cheaper than the one negotiated by the UPA?
We are told, I've not read the report yet, we are told that the pricing data was not given to the CAG. And I think if anything was given, it was redacted. It was blacked out and given.
That's right.
I have to read the report. But if the report has come to the conclusion that the aircraft was cheaper, subject to my reading the report and then revising my view, I think the report is not worth the paper in which it was printed. How can it be cheaper? You have amortized 1.4 billion euro, which is the India-specific enhancement cost. 1.4 billion euro. You have amortized it over 36 aircraft rather than 126 aircraft. That immediately pushes up the price of the aircraft significantly.
But the Congress, of course, went in, and attacked the CAG,
Yes.
Mr. Maharishi, just the other day. Was that a belated attack, anticipating that this would be a report that might make the Rafale deal actually look a little good?
I don't know.
Because the conflict of interest was always there, if there is one.
Well, I don't know, so I can't comment on that. I didn't pick up that point.
The same CAG report, I'm told, also says that it would have been better to get a sovereign guarantee, that a letter of comfort is not enough. So,
I mean, what kind of a crumb they are throwing at the opposition, which is challenging the Rafale deal? The fact is, and I've got the defense procurement procedure and the crucial payment security clauses. What we call is a bunch of payment security clauses. Our money, 60,000 crore, must be safe. And you must get aircraft for 60,000 crore rupees. So how do you ensure that the money you pay in advance, and I think we have paid 30,000 crore rupees How do you ensure that there will be delivery according to the contract? And if there's no delivery, your money will be back. For that, we ask for a sovereign guarantee, failing which we ask for a bank guarantee, failing which we ask for an escrow account to be managed by the French government. All three were dispensed with. Tell me, what is the justification for dispensing with all three? See, the intergovernment agreement is only an umbrella. The government of France is not supplying the aircraft. The aircraft is being supplied by two companies, the parts and the avionics and the equipment, by Dassault and another company called NDTV.
Yes.
Now, how will we ensure that Dassault and NDTV keep to their obligations? Even in an ordinary contract, a bank guarantee is insisted. 10% of the cases in the High Court revolved around bank guarantees. And here is a government which is happily giving away 60,000 crore without a sovereign guarantee or a bank guarantee or an escrow account.
So when Arun Jaitley says, the Supreme Court can't be wrong, the CAG can't be wrong, we can't just believe what Rahul Gandhi, a dynast as he called him, is saying. Why shouldn't we believe all these other institutions that are saying that the deal was above board?
You must believe the Supreme Court. But then you must also believe what the Supreme Court wrote in it. We are not going into the question of pricing.
Because that's not our mandate.
We are not going into the question why 126 aircraft was reduced to 36. Now, that is the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem is prices and the number. And if the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, declined to go into it, I believe it, I accept it. But who will go into it? In every other country of the world, such issues are brought before a parliamentary committee. In the US Congress, in the British House of Commons, in Australia, all this will be brought under a parliamentary committee. In India, for some reason, although we call ourselves a parliamentary democracy, oversight by a parliamentary committee is anathema to our government.
Then looking at how Rafale will play out as an election issue, and as we speak, we have the opposition, many opposition leaders sharing a stage today, in an attempt to show unity against the Modi government. One of the criticisms of the opposition is that it's a very negative campaign. It's all, the opposition versus Narendra Modi. It's all about Mr. Modi's mistakes, this government's mistakes, and there is no alternate narrative of its own that opposition parties are providing. What would you say to that?
A campaign against an incumbent government will always start by pointing out the faults of the government. The well-known parliamentary philosophy is oppose, expose, and depose. So the campaign against a government will always be a negative campaign. But our positive narrative will come when we unveil our manifesto. We're not going to stop by telling what Modi did was wrong. We're going to come back and say what we intend to do, how we see India's future, how we see India's economy, in which direction it is going, and what are the things that need to be done. There's a whole lot of things to be done. The work of a government will not be over in 5 years. The work of a government is a continuing work, and we are going to outlay or lay out a huge agenda of what we will do if the Congress is voted to power.
But how will you fight this perception that it is Mr. Modi and the BJP on one hand and a khichdi or chaos, as Mr. Jaitley called it, on the other?
Listen, Mr. Vajpayee was a taller leader than Mr. Modi. Mr. Vajpayee had much greater acceptance. He was a sitting prime minister. He was defeated in 2004. So all this build-up of Mr. Modi is meant to intimidate the opposition, but nobody in the opposition is intimidated. Mr. Modi will find his match in every state. In Bengal, he will find his match in Mamata. In Tamil Nadu, he will find his match in the DMK. In Gujarat, Maharashtra, he will find his match on the Congress, and in Maharashtra, Congress NCP. So in each state, he will find his match. He was put out as the leader in Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Madhya Pradesh. The chief ministers were actually taking cover behind him. He was leading the campaign. But he lost all 3 states. A prime minister and a chief minister in tandem could not win the states for themselves. So why do you think that Mr. Modi is invincible or Mr. Modi's party cannot be defeated? It has been defeated in several elections. It was defeated in Goa, it was defeated in Manipur.
But I think what's important, what you're saying is that it's state by state. Each state is a different battle.
I've said so.
And that's
The
what the general
coalition
election
will be state-specific coalitions.
Can I ask you then, you're saying the opposition is not intimidated, but is there an attempt to intimidate the opposition? Which you're saying, whether it's the cases against you, the cases against other people, the use of agencies, suddenly, the ED and IT department, everyone's so overactive in the last few weeks. And you genuinely believe that no one in the opposition fears that anymore?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I don't get the sense anyone is intimidated. Certainly, Mamta ji is not intimidated. Chandrababu Naidu told me he's not intimidated. I have not met Mayawati ji, but I doubt if she will be intimidated. I don't think any Congress leader is intimidated. They know that they have quickened the pace of quote-unquote investigation and are now trying to occupy media space by covering this investigation, this questioning, etc., etc., in order to build up that here is Mr. Modi waging a war against corruption. But he won't say a word about Rafale.
There is also some talk that Mr. Naidu is very interested in trying to get an opposition pre-poll alliance together, and not every party would be on board with this, but some might be. Do you think that would be a good idea, or it's just better to let the chips fall in each state and then look at a post-poll coalition?
See, what Chandrababu has said does not contradict the state-specific alliances. Those alliances will remain. What he is trying to say is, all right, we have got state-specific alliances. We have state-specific alliances today in Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Bihar. We've got state-specific alliances.
Jharkhand, yeah.
Jharkhand. Some more will be formed. The Northeast is now churning in a very big churn, and some will be formed. So state-specific alliances will be formed. What he says is, can some or all of you get together and announce a pre-poll national alliance? I think many will join a national alliance, which will be an umbrella alliance. Some may not join a national alliance, a pre-poll national alliance. But even if a national alliance is not announced pre-poll, I'm not worried. I'm more concerned about state-specific alliances being firmed up, and we fight them state by state. Fight the BJP state by state.
What impact do you think Priyanka Gandhi Vadra's entry will have on the campaign trail? I mean, she's very charismatic. It's clear she has a lot of connect with people. But is it a gamble? Is it a risk for the Congress?
What is the risk?
Or there's nothing to lose?
She is an individual, an adult, a mature individual who's observed politics closely and has decided to take a plunge in politics. Anyone who takes a plunge in politics is prepared for good or not so good. All of us do that when we get into politics. But look at the immediate reaction. Her first roadshow in Lucknow, by all accounts, was a huge success. She ventured into Twitter, and I believe she's already got several 100,000 followers. So obviously, there is resonance for the name or the entry of Priyanka, and that's good for the party.
Well, certainly it made the party enthusiastic. Just coming back to your essays, you've also stated in one of your columns that there's a brazen attempt to erect a theocratic, authoritarian and majoritarian state. Are you suggesting that this is what would happen if Mr. Modi was to come back to power?
If the BJP and its allies win a two-third majority, I have no doubt in my mind they will amend the constitution. And I'll tell you why. The present constitution makes special provisions for minorities, special provisions for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and now other backward classes. It makes special provisions for federalism. The entire Article 370, 371, 371A, B, C, D, E are all special provisions which bolster federalism. The Constitution has special provisions to ensure the financial autonomy of states. The Constitution is the fountainhead out of which institutions are born. RBI, Central Election Commission, UPSC, Controller and Auditor General. Now, this government has systematically undermined institutions. The RBI, the CBI, the ED, the CIC, the CEC have all been undermined in different degrees. The latest is the National Statistics Commission. Therefore, they don't believe that the Constitution, as it stands today, is the foundation or bedrock on which they can build an India of their idea. 100% I'm sure they will amend the Constitution. And when they amend the Constitution, many of these provisions may go. In fact, some of their members have openly spoken about amending the Constitution.
So, a final question then would be, what is then at stake in this general election, if you had to sum it up? What is at stake for India?
What is at stake is your and my idea of India. My idea of India is, it's a multicultural society. It is a free society. It values liberty, equality, privacy. It values tolerance. All that is at stake. Most people can't articulate an idea of India, but inside them they know what is the idea of India. It's only when freedom is taken away, it's only when the culture of impunity grows, it's only when vigilant groups tell you what to wear, what to eat, who to marry, it's only when they attack intercaste couples and interfaith couples, then you get a jolt and say, what's going on? I mean, today intercaste, interfaith is not frowned upon. It's under attack.
Physical attack, yeah.
Nava Patodi married Sharmila Tagore, and that was a celebrated wedding. Today, people will think twice. If a Muslim marries a Hindu, whichever way, they'll think twice. I am proud of my country because it's multicultural. I'm proud that Sania is the tennis champion and Saina is the badminton champion. I'm proud that MS Dhoni captained India, Azharuddin captained India. I'm proud that Leander Paes and Mahesh Bhupati made a tennis pair and won several
Grand Slams,
championships. All that cannot be allowed to go up in smoke just because an extreme right-wing, religion-driven, inward-looking, insular group of people have acquired political power.
All right. Well, Mr. Chidambaram, thank you very much for talking to us and telling us what your idea of India is. It's, I think, an idea that many right-thinking people would share as well. So
Thank you.
Let's see how this general election goes. Thanks for joining us.